Welcome to Get Better Basketball Live. I'm Coach DeMarco, and today my guest is Coach Jordan Carter, head basketball coach at Highlands Ranch High School in Colorado. Coach Carter and I are going to talk about full court pressure, man-to-man defense. You're not going to want to miss this episode. But before we jump into it, make sure you hit that like button down below, turn on your notifications, and subscribe to Get Better Basketball on YouTube for more great video breakdowns each and every week. Another Get Better Basketball Live is up now. Coach DeMarco here with Get Better Basketball Live. Today, my guest is Coach Jordan Carter, Highlands Ranch High School in Colorado. Coach, how you doing today?
Not too bad, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I got to be honest with you. I was really excited. I saw your thread on Twitter, or now X, on full court pressure defense. Love the thread. Love the clips you showed. I'm a big fan of full court pressure defense, and I'm excited to talk about it today. And I just wanted to start by asking, how did you get started with the full court pressure defense? I saw some different coaches that you put up there that you kind of pulled in different pieces from, but what made you get started with the full court pressure?
Well, honestly, when I was a freshman in college, that's when VCU went to the Final Four, 2011. So that year, I'm born and raised Colorado. So University of Colorado, we all thought kind of got robbed that year. They probably should have been in the NCAA tournament. They had Alec Burks on that team, and we watched on Selection Sunday 13 years ago now and watched VCU make it into the tournament. Never seen Shaka Smart before. Watched this team press Kansas and go to the Final Four that year. That's when I was starting to think about becoming a coach, getting into coaching, and seeing a younger guy that I could kind of relate to, coach, and have big success. Kind of inspired me. Really liked the style of play. I always liked playing in fast. I played for a pressing team in high school. Our coach was a big fan of Rick Pitino, so we ran his black and white presses back when I was a high school player. And honestly, I'd always wanted to do it. I tried to do it in high school early and didn't work out great. So kind of reevaluated. I've pressed pretty much every dead ball for every year until this year. This year we went all in. I felt like we had a smaller team, but a lot of quickness. We had a brand new team, lost 7-8 seniors off of last year's team. So we wanted to go all in a little bit. We had guys that were good on the ball, guys that could make things happen. So we felt like now is the time to do it. And we had good success with it. So we've been tinkering with it. We've been adding some things from different coaches that I've studied and watched. So hopefully it continues to get better. But so far we've been happy what we've been able to do.
Coach, we have a pretty similar background because I got turned on to the full court pressure with Shaka Smart as well. But my high school coach, we ran the 2-1-2 press, the 2-2-1 press, and some of Petito's matchup pressure stuff back in high school as well. So I guess I was introduced to it at a young age. So we definitely have a lot in common. And as I looked at your thread, there's a lot of concepts that I think are very mutual with and we agree on. And not that I disagree with other concepts, but there's some things you do a little bit differently. But the first thing I noticed was you talk about no free ends or no free passes and bounds. Could you talk to us a little bit about that concept for your team?
Yeah, that's actually something new that we experimented with this year and found good results with. That concept we really took from Jim Crutchfield. Might not be as well known, but I think basketball junkies, hoops junkies, they know him as he used to be the head coach at West Liberty for a long time. Now he's the head coach at Nova Southeastern. They won the D2 national championship last year. And two of his assistants are having great success now running that system at West Liberty and at Gannon now, I believe, still in the tournament right now. But they face guard every single inbound, really take it away. So that was something I hadn't previously done. I was more like the Shaka Smart, you use your forearm or hammer, you put it in their ribs and you contest it, but you kind of allow it a little bit. This year we went more the default guarding was face guarding. And we did that in the full court and the half court with some sideline out of bounds. And we had good success with it. Teams that didn't prepare well or guys that were a little shaky with the ball gave them issues. I think teams aren't used to being face guarded for 32 minutes. So over the course of a game, we really had some good success with it. So I think it gives our guys an aggressive mindset and it gives teams a different look that they're not used to seeing.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of face guarding, and I'll be honest, I was more that Shaka Smart, hammer in the rib type, force
Yeah.
them to catch the ball up in front and then look to turn and trap. But I like the idea of face guard, and I see the benefit from it. And watching the clips of your team, I can see how well you guys did with it. Another concept that I use with my diamond press, but not as much in our full court man, is trapping the coffin corner. And you say that you really like low cost traps, and this got me thinking. I really love this idea. If I go back and I'm coaching high school or whatever college again, and it's something I would consider. So, can you just talk a little bit about low cost traps and why you decided to trap that coffin corner?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's another Crutchfield concept. They talk with their guys about like free traps, cheap traps, and expensive traps. So that's how we try to categorize it for our guys. Um, we like the coffin corner trap, but I tell my guys they decide, and a lot of it is based on scout and personnel. Um, there's certain guys we're not going to trap even if they're in the coffin corner. And some of our guys will trap it more often. Some guys not as much. I think it lends to our unpredictability. We just tell guys what good traps are, what we think solid traps are. Because early in the spring and summer when we were trying to introduce this, guys were just trying to trap the inbound pass every single time, no matter where it went. If it's copping corner, if it's the middle of the floor, if it was the opposite corner,
Yep.
no angle to the closeout. So you have to kind of try to frame it. A lot of that's with film and whatnot. But I think the copping corner, the ball side corner, I think that's if you can angle it right and get there quickly, close the trap down. I think that's a good opportunity for us. Even if they get out of the trap, there's so much room on the floor for us to recover that I think it's a low cost trap or a cheap trap. As opposed to when they're dribbling up the sideline and maybe if we run up, like we feel that's an expensive trap with the way the guys handle the ball and shoot the ball nowadays. So we try to categorize that for our guys. A lot of that comes from film, from teaching that way, both practice and game film. But I think as the season went on, we got good at trapping that coffin corner, and teams started to try to avoid inbounding there, and then they try to throw over the top. So we got good at countering that. So I think it's constantly as the season progresses and you see how teams try to attack you once they have film, once they have scout, once they've seen how other teams try to break your press. It's constantly going back and forth trying to figure out ways to adapt, stay ahead of the curve. But that's one trap that we like a lot because I feel like it's low cost for us.
Yeah, and you talk about trapping the turn, and I feel like you talk a lot about decision making on offense, but with the run and jump, run and double, full court pressure, man, whatever, however you want to refer to it, there is that element of decision making. And you mentioned already, like you sort of leave that up to your players, and there's an element of trust. And I know you really hammer home, the decisions in practice. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the key aspects is trapping the turn. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw a great clip where you guys do an awesome job. A couple of great clips where you like the timing is just impeccable. He's turning, you're there, and it's a turnover. So can you talk to coaches about trapping the turn and maybe a little bit about how do you teach players that decision making aspect of this press? Because I know that's not easy, but you guys do a really, really nice job of it.
Well, thanks, Coach. Yeah, it's that's tough because once again, that's kind of like a feel thing, and that comes from like endless repetition, and once again, a lot of teaching with film. But walking through in practice, even building up with like to the 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5, just emphasizing that's the trap we want if we can. We want to get guys in a speed dribble. We want to cut them off, turn them, and then have our guy coming at them. So ideally, when they turn or change direction, we're right there, and everybody else is pulling up. Um, we work on turning every day, some kind of full court one-on-one. We're just like turning them up the floor, some kind of competitive type drill. I think the main thing was big thing we got from Vance Wahlberg. Actually, Vance Wahlberg runs a 2-2-1, but they trap turns, they run from behind. So he splits the court into 4 vertical quarters. So we talk a lot with our guys about moving with the pass. So if the ball's opposite you in an outside corner, you got to be on that midline. Like if you hear in some of those clips, you hear us yelling midline when the ball's across from them. Um, they know that like they're not only shrinking the court, but they're putting themselves in a position where they can get to a trap quickly. I think the number one thing is ball pressure, making sure that guys are looking to beat the press off the bounce rather than passing through it. And once again, big reason we pressed was because we felt like we had four really quick guards that could beat guys off the when they're dribbling. I felt like we could beat them in a foot race. Um, we were good with that. I think what took us a little bit longer was rotating guys up when guys go to trap. I think I mentioned in the thread as well how it was hard to get guys to rotate up on the backside of the press because they don't want to leave their guy. But I think just articulating that, you got to leave something open when you're trapping. So you're going to leave the furthest opposite open to go trap that turn. So just repping it, and we'd start drills where they have to get a turn trap before we progress through the drill and go up and back or whatever it may be. So I think just emphasizing it every single day, because you are what you emphasize ultimately.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I have a couple of things here that I want to touch on, but you talk about moving up in the press, and you did mention that in your thread, and that's such an interesting concept because I feel like a lot of the press is a 2-2-1. You're rotating back into the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Even the diamond press, which we use, you're rotating back, you're rotating over.
Mm-hmm.
With the run and jump press or this type of full court man to man pressure, you're getting steals because you're trapping and then you're rotating up on that player that you left. And that's where a lot of the steals come from. That's a tough concept to teach. And there's a lot of trust that you have to build in the players,
Mm-hmm.
but also a lot of repetition. So, any advice to coaches when they're, because I think that's really a key concept as you just talking about. How do you get players to sort of buy into that aspect of rotating up, because it's one of the unique aspects of this press?
Yeah, I think once again, I think we would start like we wouldn't even start on the inbound. We'd start like with a player around the free throw line extended, 70 feet from the rim. Start where on ball defenders got to get him in a speed dribble. We're going for that trap. So therefore, that guy knows he's supposed to rotate up. And we also articulate to the guys, sometimes you use little psychological things with the kids. You say, look, you guys always are trying to dunk in pre-games or in practice. It's like, if you want to dunk in a game, like this is where you'll get a dunk in a game. I think in one of our clips, one of our guys gets that just by running up. And some of the guys, they really feed off that. They say, oh, I can actually get a dunk off of this if I rotate up hard. Sometimes you just do things like that. And maybe it's not the best way to do it, but I know some guys, all players are motivated different ways, but just rotating up, because like once guys do it and they see that, I think the important part was when it happened, we tried to clip it and show it to the guys, and we tried to celebrate it, because once again, I think you are what you emphasize. So when we show that to the guys and they see their teammates having success in it, then other guys were buying in, and it was easier to get guys to want to do that. I think just trying to get guys to do it that first time was tough. But once we had a few examples and guys saw success, I think then the momentum came. That's when we became really good at it.
Yeah, you start to build that momentum. They see the success of those traps. Someone gets an open dunk, and then everyone wants an open dunk. Now, you
Right.
talked about speeding up teams in this press, and for me, well, we played two halves, and then we went to four quarters in my state in Massachusetts, and it was a four-quarter press, right? You might not get some of those turnovers in the first quarter, but you wear them down over four quarters, and as you speed teams up, they're going to take off, and there's times they're going to beat you up the floor. And I love that you talk about back tapping, because for me, this was really critical to the full court pressure system. If you don't sprint back and you don't chase and back tap, and sometimes you don't get the back tap, but they start running from you and they're just flying down the floor. They're out of
Yeah.
control. You're chasing them. They're nervous. But can you just talk a little bit about back tapping and the significance to this press, and how you incorporate that, with your team, how you teach it with your team?
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I know guys that I studied, so Rick Pitino, Billy Donovan, Nolan Richardson, they all said similar things. They said, if you do this right, most of your turnovers that you force or most steals will come from back tapping. Just because, guys will figure out how to break through or they'll split a trap, but then a lot of times ball handlers have a tendency to relax a little bit. And you can even see them on film that once they beat you, they kind of are looking around, they feel like they're in the flow, and if you're relentlessly chasing them, and we work on that, I think like 2-3 times a week we do a really simple drill where we'll just have guys like chase teammates down from behind. We teach back tapping. You go with your inside hand rather than across their body, because when you're a pressing team, you're going to generally accumulate more fouls, so we try to avoid ticky-tack ones like that. Go with your inside hand, tapping upwards. Guys in front of the ball are stunning, faking at him, trying to help slow him down so that guys from behind can actually catch up and tip the ball. Just big, it's nothing crazy, like nothing like really high speed, even just like a warm-up drill, just running through the ball and back tipping and then throwing ahead, pitching ahead for a layup. I think little things like that. And then we'll start from, I think Shaka Smart calls this fix it drill, where they get split in a trap or triangle fast break. And then so the start of the drill is them chasing from behind and trying to back tip. So I think just little things that reinforce that habit. And once again, if you want it to be good at it, you got to do it almost every single day and emphasize it. So even little things like that, I think over time it builds good habits for that. But it's been really good for us. It saves some drills for us, or saves some press breaks for us for sure.
You get a lot of coaches that are, critical of the full court press and say you give up layups. But if you're chasing and back tapping and you're sprinting down the floor, I think you get a lot of turnovers off that. And, we didn't give up, to be honest, a lot of open shots. And I see how good you guys are at it. And I don't see a lot of open shots you're giving up either. So another thing that coaches always say, just clear out. We got a good point guard. Clear out for the point guard. You're good. Don't worry about it. Just bring it up 1v1. And you talk about forcing the action. And this is also a key aspect. I know I learned this from Shaka Smart, as I learned a lot from watching his team play and then watching video of some of his clinics that he spoke at. So could you talk about forcing the action for coaches who say they're just going to clear out on us and then the press is over? It's not going to be worth as much. We can heat up the ball at one guy, but we're not going to get the traps. What is that forcing the action? What's it mean to your team?
Right. Yeah, and honestly, that's how I typically attack man-to-man presses, because we're the only team I've ever seen force the action. So typically you can either give it to your best ball handler, or alternately you can give it to a guy that's guarded by a not so good on-ball defender and clear him out. So we don't want teams to be able to do that. And that's one of the most common press breaks we see. So we call, like, the guys know to yell clear out, even on the bench, like we see them clear out. Usually the last guy to leave, which I think in the thread I say it's usually the guy that's guarding the inbounder. That guy on the ball knows that his job is to heat up the ball even more and get him outside of the middle of the floor, get him to an outside quarter, because he knows that guy's coming back to force a trap and everybody else is rotating up to be really aggressive. So the on-ball defender's job is to try to get him to an outside quarter of the court. Then that guy who's coming back, depending on the angle, he might trap from the high side, he might trap from behind, but they're trying to corral him. We've had really good success with that, because I think typically when guys clear out, the other guys don't really want to be involved with the play anymore. They think their job is done. They're just going to wait down court, get ready to shoot or set up their set play or whatever it is while the guy brings the ball up the floor. So we just use it as an opportunity to be really, really aggressive. We think that's a pretty cheap trap too. I think the guys do a good job of leaving the furthest guy opposite open in that one. And if we're doing a good job on the ball, that pass shouldn't be available anyway. And I think typically when we've had some success with that, teams stop trying to clear out and they'll leave a guy back. Like, honestly, if I were playing us, I wouldn't want to clear out, because I think by the end of the season, by January, February, we got pretty good at it. Teams started trying to go more 1-4 up or have multiple guys up, because the clear out, if they couldn't blow by us or get by the trap, they really got in trouble with that. So that's been good for us too.
Yeah, and that can be really effective against teams that have some pretty good guards, and teams think they can clear out. And if you have some good defenders that can heat up the ball and you can get that trap in, they do get, kind of hung out on an island. Concept that's interesting. And, my first year we did this, the personnel, and it was a little bit instinctive, which was trapping after a missed shot. And we had a balance of being able to trap, but get back. And then my next couple of years, we would jump up to that and they would go over the top and it was gone. And then we became when they get the rebound, get back, we're not doing that. And we're going to be really, really good in the half court. We just personnel wise, we just weren't as good at it. And we repped it. We practiced it. We might do it in an ATO situation, say, hey, we're going to start trapping, off the missed shots. But we weren't as good at it as we were our first year. But this is something you talk about in your thread, and it can be super effective because teams think they get the rebound and they're golden. They're just going to go up the floor. You guys are trapping, it sounds like, in these situations. So can you talk a little bit about this? And I don't think it's the easiest concept to teach, because I feel like sometimes teams can go over the top or they can beat you up the floor. but you guys look like you're pretty good at it. So can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, that's another concept that we started this year. We hadn't ever, I'd never trapped or never pressed missed shots until this season. That's another thing that we took from Crutchfield. He's been doing that his whole career. But of course, it's a little different on the college level when you can recruit guys to your system, whereas high school, for the most part, you got guys who come in your doors and all of that. But I think our guys, once they got the hang of the press, they understood like what guys were supposed to be up and what guys should fall back and pick up the guys further away from the bucket. I think naturally they started to just go to their spots. So on a missed shot, we would rep it where, kind of like Tom Izzo's wardrobe, we would just add a pressing component. We'd miss a shot, we'd rebound, we're pressing on that. So then closest guard would jam the rebounder, we find the outlets, almost like a diamond. Kind of like if the ball's, it's usually a rebound somewhere in the middle of the floor, then we're in kind of like a distorted diamond shape, and then we match up with guys closest. If it's caught more to the sideline, it's more like a box shape. Still the matchup type principles, and it takes a lot of reps and a lot of repetition, and kind of like what you said, it's based on personnel too and on scout. We played some elite guards this year, some really, really good ones. I mean, our league has 6 of the top 12 in our state, so there were certain teams that like we could not do that as much. Like one of our last games, we played the player of the year in our league who averaged 23 a game. He's a point guard, blazing fast. Like we couldn't do that as much with teams like that. But certain teams, or if that guy comes out, we tell our guys like, okay, like we're really going to heat it up a little bit. But I think once you have the pressing principles down, I think the guys, once you've done it day in, day out for months and months and months, or sometimes for years, they kind of figure out organically where they need to go, where they need to rotate, when it's a good time to trap, or when do they just need to pressure the ball, keep in front, and get to our half court defense. So I think once again, repping it, trying to like put constraints in our drills where like they're going right off of a missed shot and pressing the rebound, I think was really good for us. Once again, using like film to teach. But I found it was a lot of ways it was more effective for us to press off of misses because, like I said in the thread, I think most coaches don't have a missed shot press break, and kids aren't used to being pressed off a missed shot. So it was effective for us, but we had to be smart about it because we could get burned on it, kind of like what you alluded to.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It reminds me a little bit of a lot of coaches. Sort of a hot buzzword now is that tagging up system. I think
Right.
Aaron Furran talks about it, and sort of jumping the ball a little bit after a missed shot and sending more guys to the boards. And it's a
Yeah.
similar concept when you can do it, and when you're a full court pressure man team. There's certainly benefits of it. One other thing you talk about before we jump into some video is taking charges, and really, not specifically, but really how you get in position and make plays when they beat you down the floor. And I saw a clip of you guys taking a charge, and that's an important concept. And can you just talk about those situations with coaches out there who's, there are times in reality teams are going to get it up the floor on you, and you're going to back tap, or maybe you
Mm-hmm.
take a charge, you chase and get a deflection. Those things are going to happen. So can you talk a little bit about that for coaches?
Yeah. And that's something that also, that's something else that we track and that we celebrate. And we keep track of deflections like a lot of coaches do, the diving on the floor for, like we give guys points, like we use NATO's blue collar points chart. We talk about floor dives, taking charges +4 on that chart. I think is the highest scoring. I think it's the highest scoring play on that chart. We celebrated one of our forwards led the state in charges taken this year. He broke the school record. He took 25. He took almost 1.5 a game. So I mean, he was phenomenal at it. But then we got guys that like weren't naturally inclined to take charges to finally take them. For some of it took till like February, but eventually it caught on enough. I think when guys saw that like it was really celebrated and rewarded, and saw that like that means you can play more, even if you're not scoring a whole bunch. If you're going to do things like take a charge, if you're going to do things like get a lot of deflections, get back tips, that sort of thing. So we also drill taking charges every single day, even on our closeout drills. Like we take charges to get them used to like hitting the floor, So I think some guys are just hesitant to do it. They don't like to take contact or take hits like that. And we just tell guys, save the day. Like if our press gets broken, it's a 2-on-1 or whatever it is, a 3-on-2, a 3-on-1, like save the day. Even if they give the ball up, if you set up in front, take the charge. Referees love calling charges. It's one of their favorite, it's one of their favorite calls to make. So say, look, like, I think there's a few clips in there where they had a layup, and like our guy just sets up, takes one, and then instead of them getting a layup, it's a turnover and a foul, and we get the ball back. So once again, just positive reinforcement, emphasizing with our guys and rewarding it. And I think over time, like anything else, like kind of caught on. I think it was good for us. I still think we could have done a better job of it, but we really leaned on our one guy who led the state in charges, but other guys did a pretty good job on it too.
Coach, I love this. I could go back and forth all day with the concepts that, I feel like we went through a lot of the basics. I'm sure there's some other things that are going to come up, but you have some video clips to share. And I love just talking full court pressure. But then when you
Mhm.
hear about it and then you see it in action, it really is amazing. And I've seen clips of your team. You guys are very, very good at that. And I mean that because I've seen a lot of teams. I used it myself. I'm really excited to take a look at these clips. So let's jump in here.
All right. Well, we see there's some clips. We talked a little bit about contesting the inbound, just getting right up after made buckets. You see, like when it's a dead ball, we'll designate more like who we want on the inbound or where we want guys, but we really emphasize the quick pickup. So just getting to the closest guy. You see, like I would like for us to face guard there, but this is our big, so he's kind of just putting a lot of pressure on here, kind of fouling him. He's got arms around him, probably not the best technique, but the ref isn't looking at him, so we get away with it. Good active hands, make a run. I think that was our third bucket in a row, force a timeout there. A lot of teams kind of struggle with that. This is our rivalry game. It's a very good team. It's a top 5 team in the state. We were able to force some turnovers late in the second half, kind of like what you talked about. Like some teams, your better teams aren't going to turn the ball over a lot in the beginning of the game, but like wear and tear over the course of the game, we were able to get some good stuff out of it. Same thing here. This team was ranked 10th in the state when we played them. We started the game down 15-0, and we ended up winning the game. We had a 52-point half in that game, and a lot of it was because we were able to start getting the press going. This happens a lot. Teams try to go over the top on us. Sometimes they overthrow because they're not used to having to go against a constant face guard, and we're able to turn it into offense for us quite a bit. I wish we finished as efficiently as we did right there. But here's a good example of a pretty solid face guard. See, we got one of our taller guys on the basketball here, doing a good job here. He's starting to panic, throws a rush when we're able to get easy buckets off of it. So typically, if it's off a made bucket, I think face guarding works a little better. When teams have time to set up, sometimes it's a little bit harder. Sometimes we may bring the guy on the ball back behind the front line. I can show clips of that too. But that's our inbound stuff. We talked a little bit about back tipping, huge in our press. This is off the missed shot press. So this kid's unbelievably fast. So I mean, that's helpful when you got a guy like that too. But I mean, just like we talked about, like guys when they get out in front of the field, they kind of relax. You can see kind of just slows down. He's looking to make a play, and we're able to come back and turn it into a really like a 3-on-2, a 2-on-1 on us. This one, same thing, kind of loses sight of him, forgets about him. We're able to just turn it into really going to the free throw line off of that. It's something you got to emphasize and something you got to work on, I think, but we've gotten good results out of it. And I think the guards really bought in because they were able to see like them get layups, see the ball go through the hoop a little bit and get some transition opportunities out of it. Let's see. We also got, like we talked about, the Coffin corner. Again, not like when we used to run Shaka Smart's dime, we would always trap the Coffin corner. This one's more like a read for our guys. Like I think in this clip, they throw the Coffin corner and we trap and they actually get out of it, which he should have taken that pass away a little bit better. But then we emphasize sprinting out of our traps no matter where they are on the floor. Because we do so, we're able to turn it over right there.
Coach,
This
can you
was in our
talk a little bit about you sprint out, they get the ball up the floor. Sometimes you get the steal, but fixing it, and they get it over half court. You don't always get a steal, and then you have to get matched up. I don't know if you have a specific clip or you could just speak to what that looks like for your team. How do you sort of fix it, or what does that mean for your team?
Yeah, so fix it. I mean, I got a clip here that says fix it, but just and we drill it too, and I'm sure you've used the drill too, Shaka Smarts, where like we're in a trap and we throw out of it and we have to sprint out of it, get quickly matched up, keep them out of the paint, no open jump shots. I mean, that's something that we track as well. I think, and we tell the guys like there's no like perfect science to it. It's going to look different every single time because our press is going to look different every single time. It's mostly just about communication and then forcing the shots that we want. So we tell guys if they're going to shoot a floater on us, maybe a 6 foot pull up jump shot, anything that's not a layup or maybe an open three is good for us as long as we rebound the basketball. So that's something we work on from different situations, something we emphasize because we're going to get beat like here, not the best trap right here. Like now this is one of those what we call an expensive trap. The guy's under control. He's dribbling toward the middle of the floor. We get a little bit aggressive, throws right there. So we got to sprint out and we got to kind of hold the fort right here. It's like a 3-on-4 really. He sits right here, and then our guard kind of anticipates right here, is able to get the steal. So even though we didn't do a great job with our trapping principles there, we're able to come up with a forced turnover just because we were able to scramble a little bit.
Could you talk a little bit about just trapping the turn and forcing the action? Just the last couple of clips
Yeah.
before we wrap here. I'm curious to see the trapping the turn
Yeah.
or
Trapping the
forcing
turn
the
or
action.
forcing the action. Yeah. So the clear outs, so you could see like he sees he's leaving. So he's the last guy to leave. So he's going to just go at him. And we pull up and then kind of speed them up that way. It happens a lot. Like, certain, within a few possessions of a game, you kind of see how teams are going to attack you. A lot of them like to clear out. So then we're just going to stay in that trap until he gives up the basketball. I think the big key is not getting split up here and then having our backside guys rotating aggressively up to kind of take away that skip pass. And it works really well for us. I mean, usually we're able to get teams out of it fairly quickly. Usually teams have like one or two ways they're going to break your press. And we really like this against the clear out. We think it gives us a good opportunity to make a play on the ball. Usually we're able to get some kind of live ball turnover action on the clear out. That's a clear out. I mean, and then the turn steals, if you're able to like get them in a speed dribble, like this guy, he knows he's supposed to come trap. So you just run, we get him to turn. A lot of times guys will go behind the back or they'll do a spin dribble in the middle of the floor, and that's a great time to go for that live ball steal.
Coach, I love those clips, and I'm guessing as we coaches see this, we're gonna have a lot of questions, and we might have to do a round two. But that's a really good dive into the basics, and you do a really nice job breaking down each of the concepts of the press for coaches. So I think it's really easy for them to understand. It's not an easy press to teach; it takes time, but
Sure.
you do a really nice job breaking it down. Just the last two questions. One is for coaches who want to teach us a quick piece of advice you have for them. And then if coaches want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, definitely. So the first question was the most important thing when teaching the press, you said? I'd say, and I think you can attest to this, like you've got to be all in. Like it can't be a sometimes thing. It can't be like, oh, I'd kind of like to press. It'd be cool. Like you have to be 100% committed to it. Because I'm a big believer in if you're not committed to something, if you don't believe in something, your kids aren't because they can tell. So that means when you're pressing a team and you give up a few open layups, you can't all of a sudden back off on it and say, well, we're not going to do this anymore.